So, Andrea, Laurie, thank you so much for joining us on the Live Well podcast.
Thanks for having me today. I'm excited to be here and talk to you about wellness and health and beauty and all those fun things.
For the benefit of our listeners, our viewers, I'm going to give a quick introduction. So, Andrea, you are certified coach, a licensed therapist, an education specialist, a wellness professional. You're also a client of Bodyworks. You've been on some major mass media, like global news. You work with, you're based here in Halifax, Nova Scotia, but you work with clients all over the world to accelerate their success in areas such as health, wellness, business, career, the list goes on, relationships. I feel
Mhm.
like that gives people a pretty good sense of what you're all about. Is there anything else you want to add?
No, I mean, that does a great job of encompassing it. It's funny to actually listen to you say all that because it sounds so the opposite of having a niche focus, which is what, everyone talks about. It's a pretty broad net, but everyone has their own kind of path that gets them, towards the work that they're doing. And that's just kind of been the evolution for me.
Yeah, so how did you get started in the work that you do?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So I've been in private practice for 10 years now, which is hard to believe, because we're in 2024. So I graduated with my master's in counseling in 2014 from Acadia, actually. And, I think I waited about a year to get some professional counseling experience under my belt. And, I had had a little bit of entrepreneurial experience prior to that in the health and wellness space. And I thought, you know what? I think it's time that I create a business or an offering based on, what I've studied, what I've gone to school for, because I had about, 10 years of university up until that point. And my first degree was in exercise science and kinesiology. And then I did education and then I did counseling. So I was like, I have a bit of this unique sort of like mind body knowledge. And then, of course, everyone brings their own personality and their own skill set to what they do. So I thought, rather than, working in a business that multiple people are all offering the exact same thing, I thought, why not, create an offering, based on what I've learned and like what only I can do in the way that I can do. So I thought, let's give this a try. And I really just focused on the clients that I wanted to work with and sort of my unique knowledge and skill set. So for me, it was different than most counselors because a lot of counselors focus on clinical therapy. So working with people with, mental health struggles or, people with the different sort of challenges in that space. And as much as that work is really important, it just wasn't where I wanted to focus. I really wanted to focus working with people who were, you know, already doing quite well, high functioning, but maybe needed some help navigating a current situation or moving into the future, right? So that's another difference between coaching and therapy is that therapy often involves looking at the past and things that have happened in the past and kind of unpacking feelings and that type of thing relating to things that have taken place already, whereas coaching is really like present and future oriented. So it could be people that are looking to, initially it started with wellness counseling and coaching. Then it moved more into life coaching. I did a lot of career coaching with a lot of young people, like people in their 20s, people in their 30s, a lot of people who were like trying to find what it was that they wanted to do. So that kind of internal discovery process. And some people who wanted to grow and, expand, take on a bigger role, become more confident, that type of thing. So it really just evolved. It started with individuals, and eventually I had companies reaching out saying, will you work with my team, either in groups or, with some high performing leaders individually. So in a nutshell, it just sort of evolved from me creating something out of, what I'd studied and gone to school for. And I guess the key point for listeners too, which I think like I would always advise people is like, if you're going to create something, you have to think about what people want, of course, and what the market needs. But I think it's important to think about, what you love to do and how you can make a difference, like using your own skills in a unique way.
And I mean, your business has always, and your professional life has always interested me because it seems like such exciting and rewarding work because you're working with individuals or teams who are
Mhm.
committed to making a change and growing, and you get to be a part of that momentum and that excitement.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, it really is. And that's a unique way of looking at it. And I do love it. It's something that I honestly never get tired of. Um, after sessions, with clients, and I only have a kind of a small roster of clients at the moment, by choice. And so I'm fortunate that the clients that I do work with, they're all a great fit, right? So they're all, they're there, they're motivated and that type of thing. And I always leave my sessions feeling like jazzed. I feel more energized. I feel just excited. It's kind of like it's almost like an energy exchange in a sense. Of course, there's more to it than that. But yeah, it's there's really nothing like it. And I really do get a lot out of it, especially the one-to-one connection. I mean, working with groups is great too, especially when it's in person and you have a team and you're helping them kind of like gel and come up with new ideas and feel excited about coming to work. Like that's another one of my passions too, because so many of us I find can just get in these slumps and we feel like we're just going through the motions and okay, I have to go to work and it's the same thing, the same thing. So I feel like if you can get people working together as a team and have new ideas where they can have their voice heard and bring things to the table and they feel excited and motivated about how they're going to improve themselves and how they're going to improve what's going on at their work, it's like you have that buy-in, you have that spark back. And I think that's something that so many of us are missing. And it's the same thing in people's personal lives too. So it's really it's a pleasure. It's something I love to do, and I'm so glad that I get to work with clients and be part of their stories in that way.
Ever since I decided to create the Live Well podcast, you've been on my list of people to interview because I just think you have so much value to add to conversations around health, wellness, and aesthetics. And you've worked in wellness before.
Mhm.
Um, Goal setting is something that comes up in these worlds a
Mhm.
lot. And I know you have a non-traditional way of thinking about goal setting
Mhm.
and also, just making healthy changes and so on.
I mean, I always like to think of, okay, when people ask about goal setting, it brings me back to that traditional model of SMART goals. So it's like specific, measurable, action-oriented, time-bound, realistic, right? And that's all great. That all makes sense. I could come up with some, fancy thing to say about this is how you set goals, but I mean, I feel like the question is more around like how do you set goals that are meaningful to you, that you're going to want to take action on, that you're going to want to start and then continue, because anyone can set some nice goals on paper, but if you don't feel connected to it, if you don't feel like you can start it and continue it, then in my opinion it sort of does more harm than good, because ultimately someone's not going to feel good about themselves. It's going to be a hit to their self-esteem if they've gone through the process of setting these goals and then they didn't do anything with it. It's going to be like a detriment to them. So I think like rather than talking about like how do we set good goals, it's more about like how do we set goals that matter to us, that we can start and then feel good about continuing.
For example, I mean, as you know, Bodyworks is all about um, creating body improvements to enhance confidence and quality of life.
There's a few tips. So if someone said like, I'm looking to say improve my fitness after something like an injury or say a pregnancy or something like that. So as far as like the mindset and how you might look at that, I think I would start with having somebody focus on where they want to be. So focus on that end result of, okay, so what is it that they want? Is it that they want to be more toned? Is it that they want to, be in the same shape that they were last year? Whatever it is. So kind of envision themselves there, whether it's at their ideal weight, being active without pain, whatever it is. And then just visualize that. Like think about your identity and seeing yourself as that person. And then, if somebody is, say, getting over an injury or they're going through a situation where how they their physical self right now is not how they typically are. You know, if someone was working with me on kind of the mental side of that, I would encourage them to just recognize that, you know, your current reality, that's not your long-term reality. That doesn't even have to be your reality. You can just look at it as a transient phase that you're moving through. So I think it's really just adopting the mindset that this is temporary, seeing yourself where you want to be, and then doing, you know, doing one thing every day to help get yourself there, right? So that could be something that you have control over. And that could be, you know, a 20-minute workout every day. That could be having healthier home cooked meals or healthier meal delivery or whatever can work in your life, or cutting out sugar, like doing one thing every day to move you towards the version of you that you want to be. But it's like, if you almost like trick yourself into being that person that is fit, that is, you know, taking care of themselves, it's easier to kind of identify with that. You know, other ideas are, you know, if there is an injury or something like that, like start slow and work your way up. I find one barrier that gets in the way for people sometimes in these types of situations is like this all or nothing thinking. So sometimes people will set this big goal or this big plan and say, okay, I want to lose this much weight, or I'm going to go on this diet. Not that, you know, I'm a big proponent of specifically diets, but people will make a plan. And then if they go off it in some way, they think, okay, well, let's just throw it all away. You know, like I fell off the wagon. So it's like, you know, I had a whatever, something they weren't supposed to have. So then they just continue with that. But that's sort of the worst approach that you can take. So what you want to do is like I said, start slow, work your way up. You know, if starting slow means going for a walk every day, like that's great. Walking is really underrated for strengthening your bones, for your mental health and well-being, cardiovascular health. Actually, it's great for fat loss and fat burning. So just try something slow, work your way up. I always encourage people to do what's fun when it comes to physical activity and like what they enjoy. And someone might say, okay, well, I don't enjoy anything. Well, there must be something that you enjoy a little bit, and kind of start there. Because I think with anything, if we want it to work and lead to success for us, it has to be something that we do consistently and over the longer term. So thinking about something that you like to do, you know, and that could be, you know, taking a dance class or going to a yoga class, or like I said, going for a walk with a friend. Like find something that you like and start there. So I think it's about, I don't want to say lowering expectations, but just kind of starting where you are, making it fun, progressing, you know, making it social if you can. Like if you like to, I said, go for a walk with friends, or if there's a class that you can go to with someone, or a partner, brother, sister, something like that. Those are a few tips. But and another thing that I find has always like really worked for me from like the mindset component is when it comes to exercise and eating, it's eating healthy. I think it's like, I think about how I'm going to feel after, you know? So I know that if I exercise, I'm going to feel good generally. For myself, if I don't move my body for a couple days, I feel pretty agitated. I feel pretty uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And the same is eating. Like if I eat things that I know don't agree with me, you know, you don't feel well after that. So I think that focusing on like the reward, I guess, of the behavior, and keeping that in mind. And then you can also, depending how you are motivated, whether you're toward motivated or away motivated, you could also do the opposite. You could think about, you know, how you're going to feel uncomfortable if you don't move your body, or maybe in a negative mind space, or, you know, okay, if I eat, you know, 3 of these donuts, you know, I might have a stomach ache this afternoon, I might have a sugar crash, right? So just kind of thinking beyond the moment and kind of how you're going to feel during and after the behavior, and kind of using that to motivate you. And the other thing with habits too is that they're so much easier to continue once you have the momentum built, right? So once you have a routine around something, once it becomes part of your day to day, it's just like that, you know, that statement, and an object in motion stays in motion, an object at rest stays at rest. It's a lot easier to continue doing something once you're in the routine of it than it is to start.
Yeah, and so this keeps coming up lately. This has been a subject of conversation with a number of people, including Mark Hobbs. And it just seems like getting started is the hardest part. Like
Mm,
that initial lifestyle shift is just, it feels so hard to get up and do something totally different from your usual routine
mm,
and make that the standard.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
I love that expression of the objects in motion stay in motion. And what was the rest of it?
An object at rest stays at rest. I
Yeah,
should know off the top of my head who said that, but it's like a physics law. I think it's
right.
something that I learned in like grade 10 or 11.
Yeah,
But it's like science, but it's true, I think, for us as well.
yeah.
Um, and there's a really great book. So, if you're ever speaking with a client and they're telling you this, I can't get started, there's a really great book. It's called Atomic Habits by James Clear.
I've heard of
And
that.
he has some really good points in there. And I'll be honest, I didn't read the whole book, even though I really liked it. And I have it. I have the paper copy, and I think it's on my Kindle too. But there was a couple points that he mentioned that I thought, okay, these are simple, but they're really useful. And I've actually experimented with a couple of them myself. But he talks about stacking habits. So basically, the best way to create a new habit is to tie it into an existing one. So it's kind of like if there's something you already always do, then you can tie in your new habit to that. So say it's like you say you work from home. You wake up, the first thing you do is go and turn on your coffee machine. Okay, well, say you work from home and you have like an hour before you have to start. Maybe after you make your coffee, you go and do your 20-minute workout. But it's about like having a time and having a process and a structure. Or it could also be something like, say, you're a parent and your child has sports or activities that they go to, and you have to drive them there and wait an hour. Okay, so maybe you have that time that's already part of your routine. Maybe you bring your sneakers, you put on your workout pants, and instead of sitting there for an hour or like going shopping, you just put your earphones in, you go for a walk, right? So it's something like that.
Sorry to interject. It's just so funny you bring that up right now because I was thinking about it this morning. Lately, my kids have been getting up in the morning and they say, "Mommy, I want to go to the playroom in the basement." And so I'll take them down and that's like a whole thing. So I just started doing some of my own at-home exercises and stretches down there while I'm with them and they're playing because it's like, okay, how else can I use this time? I can still interact with them while I'm doing this thing that I really want to do on a daily basis. So yeah, that speaks to exactly what I was thinking and experiencing this morning.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
And then he talks about another concept called reducing friction. And again, it's really simple, but it's really powerful. So basically, friction is like anything that kind of makes a new behavior more difficult. So it could be something as simple as, okay, so say it's evening, you want to go to the gym or you want to do a home workout, but in order to fit it in, you have to like start it right away. That could be as simple as like picking out the clothes that you're going to wear and laying them out. And if it is a home workout and say you need like a few weights or yoga mat, like set it up. So then you wake up and it's a simple thing, but like I've actually done this myself. It really actually makes a difference when your clothes are right there and your stuff is laid out. It's like, okay, you don't have, and I think I know what makes this powerful is it takes away the decision making. It's like if that's already done for you, all you have to do is just put on the clothes, and it eliminates the mental process of like, shouldn't I? Right. And I think that's kind of where we lose momentum sometimes. So if you can reduce the friction, like by making it easier for yourself, by having your stuff all ready to go, and that's just one example. But it almost reminds me of like, a lot of like high powered business people or even presidents, for example, like they wear the same type of outfit like every single day. And they do that because it eliminates the decision making of like, what am I going to wear today? Like they just get up and they just start, right? So anything you can do, and I'm sure like, if we talked about it more, we could come up with more ways of like reducing friction. But I think if somebody wants to think about that in their day-to-day life or the routine,
Yeah.
it really can help you with like getting over the hump of getting started, just making it easier for yourself.
Visualize what you want your life to look like once you've achieved your goal. I think that
Mhm.
visualization is really important because it takes me back to like Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of highly effective people. Start with the
Mhm.
end in mind. And I
Mhm.
always think about that and I'm like, God, that's so smart.
I think, and like just to elaborate on that, and you're exactly right. I think another powerful piece is that, when it's your life, yes, but also when it's yourself, because a lot of it is the identity piece. And it's like, if you see yourself as a fit person, if you see yourself as somebody who exercises, then again, you're reducing some of the friction to take the behaviors and do the actions that a fit person takes. And you're also reducing some of the negative mindset or the negative beliefs that you might have going on if you look in the mirror and what you see isn't what you're used to seeing or isn't what you want to see, right? That can be really discouraging for people. But if they're saying, okay, well, this is just transient, this is just a phase, I know this is how I am, right? I am this fit person, right? Then it accomplishes two things, right? It helps them with having the right identity to take the action, and then it also helps get over any type of like negative self-talk or negative feelings they might be having about themselves.
Gotcha. Yeah. And then tying in new habits with existing habits that you're happy to keep to help you along that journey.
Focusing on like how good it feels, right? And of course, I'm sure some people might be listening, they say, oh, it doesn't feel good to exercise, it's painful. And okay, that might be true. But I'm sure there's something about it that feels good, whether it's like the fresh air or having a mental break and no one talking to you, or feeling a boost of energy. Most people do actually feel more energized after exercise. And even, like I said, even if you start with walking, I mean, that's great. That's really healthy. Like, they've done studies on the populations of centenarians and people who have lived the longest in the world. And besides certain elements of diet, like, one of the things that they find is that these people walk. Like, they live in communities where they walk up hills and they walk down hills and they walk all the time. And that is one of the constants, right? They're not people who go to the gym or even have gyms to go to or are like marathon athletes. They're just people that walk. So, kind of starting there, and it doesn't have to be walking, be anything, but just focusing on how good it makes you feel. Or, if you eat a good meal that is healthy and agrees with you and gives you energy, again, it's like just connecting with that feeling. And then you could also connect with, how you don't feel well when you eat things that do not agree with you or are not good for you.
On the subject of people across the world who live the longest, I have actually been reading about that recently, and I think I've come to the conclusion that here in North America, we really overcomplicate things. And some of the factors that I think are crucial to living a long, healthy life with a good quality of life are, to your point about walking, just moving your body every day, cut out the junk, participate in your communities, have family dinner, visit your grandchildren, like volunteer, just like connecting on a regular basis. These are things that I think are hard for us here in North America because highly processed food is so prevalent and normal. It's harder for us to walk, especially in certain areas of North America where cities really aren't built for walking, they're built for driving. Um, and healthy foods like fresh produce is a lot more expensive in this part of the world. But so it is more challenging in a sense, but I think that the recipe for a healthy long life is pretty simple. If you look to those examples of the blue zones.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And to your point about simplicity, like, to add to those things, a couple things that we know, right, that are so good for us that add to longevity are quitting smoking, drinking less, like drinking in moderation, as well as moving your body, the nutrition component. And you brought up the piece about social connection. And I think that is something that really, it's been getting more attention, and there's been more research on it. And the research, I believe, I can't quote the study, but I've heard it several times, that having strong social connections, like starting in midlife to lead you into later life, is as much of a protective factor as quitting smoking, right? And that people who feel isolated or they don't have strong social connections, that really impacts their health, like in a very significant way. And I think, to your point about how we do things in North America, it's traditionally more of an individualist culture here, and it's not
Yeah.
uncommon for families to be separated. Like, my family, none of my immediate family members actually live in this province, right? And I'm sure there's other people that don't live, and your family, I think
Yeah.
almost the same situation, right? So, um, but it's about how can we connect more? And I guess if I'm going to tie the mindset piece into it, personally, I love connecting with people. I am social, but I also have an introverted side to me as well, where I find it's very relaxing and peaceful to just kind of be in my own bubble. But then I really enjoy it when I connect with people. So it's almost like you might have to force yourself a little bit, just to kind of put yourself out there, or reach out to a friend. And it's so easy to, as life gets so busy and people have busy careers and people have families, to not see our friends as much as we would like. And I think that's something that it really does pay dividends. And to anyone who's feeling like they wish they had more of that, I would just say, don't be afraid to be the one who reaches out and asks to make plans, or tell someone you're thinking of them, or pick up the phone and call them, because really at the end of the day, it's so worth it.
Do you mind me asking about your own personal wellness habits and how they've evolved over time?
Yeah, sure. Okay, where to start? So, well, I mentioned I studied exercise science in university. So, as a teenager, I was really into sports. I just liked them and they were fun. And then I went to university, and it was funny. I think it was maybe after a couple months of being there, I realized, okay, I'm not doing anything. Like, I'm just sitting in class, I'm sitting in the library studying. And it was really just that realization. Like, I hadn't gotten into health, wellness, fitness, nothing. I was just like realizing I was just sitting. And so I thought, okay, well, I guess I go to the gym, because that's like what my 18-year-old brain thought. And then so when I started going to the gym, it was the first time I started exercising. And then they had all these health magazines about like fitness and nutrition, and I would read them when I was like doing cardio or whatnot. And I just really learned a ton about exercise and nutrition and calories and macros and like what your body needs. And I was just fascinated by it all. And I remember actually came home at Christmas, and how you hear a lot about like the freshman 15. I had actually had like a reverse freshman 15. And it didn't come from, and not to say that I'm not trying to make myself seem like perfect or something like that. That's definitely not the case. Everyone has their own continuum of like body image and that type of thing. But it really didn't come from like a bad place. It really just came from like, I want to start exercising. And then once I started learning about food, and I wasn't just eating what was put in front of me, I could make choices. That was the other thing, because you go to meal hall and all of a sudden you have choices, right? And it's like compound interest on money, compound interest on your choices. You make healthy choices every day. 3 months later, you're in good shape. You make unhealthy choices every day. 3 months later, you're in pretty bad shape. So that was kind of like how I got into it all. Anyway, then I ended up switching programs, doing the human kinetics kinesiology. I loved that. I loved my classes and the people in my classes. So I really kind of started off with like a gym kind of lifestyle in university, and I kept that up, after I graduated into my 20s. And it wasn't until my late 20s actually had something happen. And I had a naturopath actually tell me, at least for like the time being of when things were going on, he was like, I think you need to kind of reset your adrenals. And he said, I think you should start walking and stop going to the gym. And he didn't mean forever, but he just meant for right now. And I was like, that's really strange, because for anyone who's like taken exercise physiology or like knows that you're like, okay, fitness is pushing yourself, fitness is getting your heart, fitness is not going for a walk, right? But it introduced me to like a new way of doing things. And I'd say ever since that point, like the last 10 years or so, it's really been a mix. Like, I go to the gym, I do walk a lot outside. So where I live, we live in like a golf course community, and it's funny because there was people on the golf course the other day, and they were like yelling at me, like in a funny way. But they're like, "Do you ever stop?" Like, it's like, so I'm like, "Oh my gosh!" Like, I'm like the walker. Like, people see me and they know me from walking, right? But again, I do it for like my physical and mental health. And if I have downtime, I'm not just gonna like plop myself on the couch. I will do that if it's like 8 or 9 o'clock and I'm like getting ready
Yeah.
for bed. But
Yeah.
for the most part, I just build it in. So I think, you know, if I could say anything, it's sort of evolved from being a little bit more only focused on the gym to focused on a little bit more holistic. I do yoga a lot. So I'm a certified yoga teacher. I went to California to do my training when I was in my 20s, late 20s, and I taught for a little while. And now I really just practice on my own. I don't even go to classes. Not that I wouldn't want to, but I just kind of do what I want to do. And I usually spend about 20 minutes, and that's about it. I don't do it for an hour. I really like another type of fitness class that I really enjoy is barre, B-A-R-R-E. It's kind of based on ballet is where it comes from. But it's also similar to like Pilates. There's a big Pilates focus, and then there's a bit of cardio. And then sometimes you do weights as well. So there's upper body. And one thing I will say, I'm just going to get the name of it. I think it's called Bar Definition. So I just recently started this. It's basically an app. It's called Bar Definition. I'm not affiliated with it, but I just think it's awesome. The workouts on there are so great. And you don't need to have a bar. You can use a chair. But the workouts are awesome. And, you know, a lot of them are 20 minutes. Sometimes you can combine them, but she lays it all out for you, what you need to do, and you can do it at home. So I've been doing that. Not as often as I would like. I should be doing it more. But I think my goal now is to focus a little bit more on strength than I have in the past.
Yeah, me too. I feel like at this stage of my life, building muscle is just so much more important to maintaining good health.
Really is, and for your metabolism as well. And it's something that can often be overlooked, especially in younger people. And, you know, I think we talked about this before, and that so, you know, society, I think, is changing a little bit where there is more of a conversation around strength and around protein and that kind of thing. But traditionally, it's been a lot about being thin and being skinny, and that being kind of like the ideal. But yeah, I mean, it just helps you in so many ways. And I think what a lot of people see when they start strength training is they start seeing more changes like in their physique and in their shape than if had they not been doing it or just focusing only on the cardio. I think that we covered a lot. Yeah, it's been a great conversation. It's been a pleasure to be here with you today. And yeah, just, I mean, if anybody like, you know, wants to have more of a conversation, you know, with me about their goals, whether it's health and fitness or lifestyle, relationships, mindset, career, whatever it is, feel free to reach out. My website is andrealaurie.com, and I'm on Instagram at andrea.laurie, Laurie.
Awesome. Thank you so much.